everybody, welcome back to our kitchen. Come on in and sit right down. Today I'm going to be making something that is going to be a second try for me. I only made biscuits one time in my life. And I need to make the gluten-free, dairy-free biscuits. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take that recipe and I'm going to change it a little bit by adding herbs to the biscuits. And first of all, what you want to do, this recipe calls for 6 tablespoons of butter. And of course you need to use the vegan butter, plant-based butter, whatever you have on hand, whatever you like. And what I did is I took that stick of butter, and it's 8 tablespoons, so I cut off 2. And I'm going to save the 2 for buttering the biscuits when they come out of the oven. And so what I did with the butter is I cut it into small pieces and put it in the freezer. We want it nice and cold. I'm using food processors today. I don't know how to use a pastry cutter. People use their hands. I still don't trust myself because I'm not a baker, and I made these once before and it came out great, so we're going to see what happens. First of all, what we want to do is I'm going to take 1 cup of almond milk. I always shake it up because I don't trust anything. And we need to make what they would call fake buttermilk. And you take almond milk, and you would take vinegar, and a tablespoon of vinegar. And I'm going to be using, I'm cheating, I'm using a rice vinegar that has sesame seeds in it. Tablespoon of that. And what this does is it sours your milk and gives your biscuits a lift. And so those are the first 2 things you have to do, because you need to let this sit for 5-10 minutes. And especially the butter in the freezer, 10 minutes, the almond milk with the vinegar, 10 minutes. Okay, I'll be back and I'll show you what we're going to do. Okay, first of all, we need gluten-free flour. I'm using Pillsbury gluten-free flour because I wanted to test it out. And I found it right in the grocery store, which was good. We need 2 cups of it. And I'm going to put that in here now. Also, we're going to need, first of all, you need to do your dry ingredients first. I have a tablespoon of baking powder, and it's gluten-free. It says right on the label. And I've got a teaspoon of salt. I've got, this is where I switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to put a teaspoon of black pepper. And here is 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now I'm using the monk fruit substitute sugar in my recipe. And we're going to be adding herbs. I had, what I had on hand was fresh cilantro. You could use parsley if you don't like cilantro. And I had some freeze-dried chives. And that is a tablespoon of chives. And just chop up some cilantro on the top of your cup. And that's about all you need. Okay, we need to break down our butter. Oh, I better put it in. Duh. This is the frozen butter I was talking about. Cut up into little cubes. And remember, gluten-free butter does not freeze as hard as regular butter, but that's okay. It's going to work. And I want to pulse this. I don't want to turn it on and break down everything. You want to have some chunks of butter in your flour to give those biscuits a boost. So I'm just going to pulse this real quick. Okay, the chunks are still a little bit too big. I'll take it out and show you. See, we still have big hunks. So I'm going to continue until those are broken down to smaller pieces. Now believe me when I tell you, when I bake, I get everything all over the place. So, maybe that's why I don't like to really bake. Okay, next we're going to get a big bowl, and we're going to start mixing the wet with the dry. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to put my dry ingredients into the bowl. Oops, sorry. I know that comes through on pretty loud. Sorry about that. And here I have our buttermilk we made earlier. And let me see if you can tell. It's going to be a little chunky. That's what we want because we need to poof up our flour. And I'm going to add 1 egg to the buttermilk. That's almost to the top. Scrape all that yolk out. And I'm just going to mix the egg into the buttermilk slowly. Because I know me, it'll run over and... Okay. Here goes the wet ingredients. And I'm going to start mixing here with a wooden spoon. Now, gluten-free dough will be sticky. And we don't treat it the same way as you would if you're making a regular biscuit. So you need to treat it gently, and there's no rolling with a rolling pin. I want to get in as much flour as I can. Make sure you get it off the bottom and mix in that liquid the best you can. Now, last time I made this, I used parchment paper to put down to mold it into where I could cut it. And the parchment paper to me was terrible because the dough stuck to the parchment paper, but that's what most bakers use. And maybe it's just me. I don't know. So today I'm going to use nonstick foil, and we're going to see how that comes out as far as getting the dough off the foil. And let me make sure this is all mixed in. Now, one thing about gluten-free doughs, cakes, cupcakes, anything, you need to let it set for a while because you need to have those flours absorb the liquid. And so I'm just going to put it to the side while we get ready to put it out onto our nonstick foil. Okay, I've let the dough sit, and I'm going to take it and put it onto the nonstick foil. And it seems like it's absorbed the liquid. And one thing I forgot to tell you is when you're making your when you use gluten-free flour, if it doesn't have xanthan gum in it, then you need to add a ½ teaspoon to your flour. I use the, like I said, Pillsbury, and I also use Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1. Okay, now see how this is nice? It's not too sticky. I am using rubber gloves because I just have this thing about getting dough underneath my fingernails, and then you sit there for days and take it out. Okay, we want to press this down to about 1 inch. And you can mold it the way you want. If you see it flat on one side, just push it together like this. I think that's pretty good, to tell you the truth. I better get my pan over here. And this is also a non-stick foil. And now we get our cookie cutter. We want to dust it. First of all, I want to put a little dust on top, or gluten-free flour on top of the dough. And then I'm going to powder. Yeah, I'm going to powder my cookie cutter. And you don't want to twist it, you just want to go straight down. This is a 2-inch biscuit cutter. You can use a glass if you want to. Whatever works in your household. Looks like I'm going to get 4 out of here. Okay, then I take my dough and I take the biscuit here. And if it looks kind of funky, you just take your hand and mold it together. This dough is very nice, and you'll be pleasantly surprised when you make your biscuits. And today I'm going to make a special biscuits and gravy for my husband. That's his favorite. Usually it's made with breakfast sausage, and today I'm going to be using hamburger. And it's also known as SOS, and the people that know what that is know what I'm talking about. So you take your dough again. I'm going to put a little bit of flour here. I think it's better than parchment, to tell you the truth. Now we want to do the same thing over again. Straight down. Well, that's a pretty one. Okay, then straight down again. I'm going to bake these for 15 to 20 minutes. Check them at 15. I always check early, especially when I'm baking. And then we're going to do it again. It's like playing with Play-Doh. That's a little bit not as thick as the rest of them, but I think it's almost there. And then this last little guy, you just take your hands, pretend you're playing with Play-Doh, and make a biscuit out of it. It's going to go into the oven for, like I said, 15 to 20 minutes. Check it at 15, and we have 8 biscuits. Not shabby. Okay, I'll be back after I put these in the oven, and I'll show you what they look like. Okay folks, I did 20 minutes on the biscuits. They're nice and brown. I would pick one up, but first of all, what I did is I took the butter that I had melted in the microwave that was left over from the stick of butter, and this is again, dairy-free vegan plant butter. My mouth is watering. And I took it and I brushed it over the top about 4 times. Because that's the kind of person I am. I'm going to try to pick this up and show you. Because it's really hot. See how pretty that is? It's not black on the bottom. Nice and thick, and they are crunchy on the outside. Okay, our next, what we have to do next is make the gravy with the hamburger. I'll take you over to the stove and we'll do that. Okay, first of all, what I want to do, when you make sausage gravy, usually sausage has a lot of grease, or oil, I should say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some bacon grease to the bottom of my pan, and for all of you that are cringing right now, you can use olive oil or whatever your oil of choice is. So I have some here, and the reason it's yellow is because I made bacon with hot pepper flakes, red crushed pepper flakes. So we're going to have a little spice in here too. This is just optional. It's because it's what I had on my in my kitchen, and it gives it a little bit of better flavor, if you ask me. And as I said, we're going to be using hamburger meat or ground beef, whatever you want to call it. And because I needed to get this cooked, I made a recipe the other day that called for it, and I still had this left over in the fridge. So I needed to get it cooked up. What I'm going to do is chop this up as fine as I can, and then I'll be right back. Let me show you something that is normal when you're learning to cook. See how watery my hamburger meat is on the bottom? This is not only because it's been frozen, but the packers, when they pack ground beef, they add a lot of water. So what you need to do is don't serve it like this. Let that water evaporate, and then if you're making tacos or whatever, just because it's not going to burn, let the water evaporate and then make your recipe. Okay, what I did while you guys were gone is I added some onion soup mix that I had made. It's gluten-free, dairy-free. If you don't have to be, we just cannot use the Lipton onion soup mix because it's got yeast extract in it. So I made my own. I'll post a video on the end of this video so that you can see how to make it. And it's got onions in it, garlic, all kinds of things. And now what I'm going to do is, because there's not much grease in here to make the flour make the roux. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of olive oil or oil of your choice. And I'm going to add 1 packet of gluten-free brown gravy mix. And you just sprinkle, if you just have flour, you just sprinkle it over the top like I'm doing. I'm going to add 2 packets. And this says gluten-free right on the front of it. I've never had a problem with it bothering me. And we all know how that is. Let's get this all out of here. Okay, next I'm going to mix it in there with the meat. Scrape the bottom. I'm going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. This is optional over the meat. Now we're going to add our milk. Again, I have almond milk that I'm just going to start pouring over the top of this meat. Now we want to bring it to a boil. So I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit. This gives you a chance to scrape the bottom of your pan to get all those goodies off. Once it starts boiling, it should start thickening up. If it doesn't, well, it should. So don't worry about it. You got to make sure that you add at least, if you don't have the brown gravy mixes, add at least 2 tablespoons of a gluten-free flour. Sprinkle it just like we did the gravy mix, and you use that as your thickener. And I also have some brown rice flour that I made for gumbo, because it calls for a brown roux to make the gumbo, and I have that too. So I didn't use that today because I'm using the gravy packets. It's just starting to come up to a boil. And I'll be back to show you what it looks like when it thickens. Okay, look how thick it's getting. I ended up adding another packet of the brown gravy mix to make it thicker. If you don't have that brown gravy mix, you can add more flour over the top. People think you can't add the dry to the top, but you can. And everybody's afraid of lumps. Also, you can get a slurry of cornstarch and water, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to 2 tablespoons of water, and that can thicken it up too. So we're going to go back over so I can show you what this all looks like. Okay, we take our biscuits. Look how beautiful they are. Now the biggest thing with gluten-free is you need to let them cool. If you don't, you're going to have a gummy mess on your hands. And I'm going to cut this one in half. Oh, that's really nice inside. And because this is going to be my husband's plate, I'll cut this one in half too. You want one more, or that's it? Okay, one more. Okay, I'm going to take the camera and show you a close-up of the gravy. Okay, folks, this is the star of the recipe. The gravy going over the biscuits. And it smells so good in here. Look at that. You could put some mushrooms in here if you feel like it. And you want to get enough gravy that covers all the biscuits. And there you go. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, everybody. We have our biscuits and gravy. My husband's going absolutely crazy right now, but I have to take a taste of it to let you all know what it tastes like. Get a little bit of hamburger, a little bit of gravy, and of course that biscuit. And it's hot, so wish me luck. I'm so excited. This is so good. Don't forget to support your local businesses and your local charities. They've been through a rough time, especially your restaurants. And things are loosening up a little bit. We're getting ready to go on a California trip, so we're fully vaccinated and we're ready to go, and I hope to see you come back. Thank you. Bye.